Oh, did you catch wind of what Elena Välbe said? Olympic gold medalist, head of Russian cross-country skiing.
Velbe. Yeah.
Yeah, let's just say, her take on how Russia can get back in the good graces of, the international sports world. It's got people talking.
It's definitely raised some eyebrows, that's for sure.
That's putting it mildly. We've been going through news articles and even, Velbe's background on her Wikipedia page, and honestly, it's way more than just a headline.
Yeah, it really gives you a look into the whole world of sports and diplomacy and international relations and where that line is between free speech and, potentially disastrous statements.
Right. Okay, so for those who haven't heard, Russia's banned from a lot of international sporting events, like the upcoming Ski World Championships. And, all because of the war in Ukraine, this whole ban has stirred up a lot of debate about punishing athletes for their government's actions.
Yeah, it puts people like Velbe in a tough spot, right?
For sure.
She's incredibly loyal to her athletes, wants them back competing. But, she's working within a system that demands a certain level of, compliance.
Right. So when someone in an interview asked her what it would take for Russia to be allowed back into these competitions, her answer, not what anyone expected.
Not even close.
Velbe said, and I quote, "If we had dropped a big bomb over central London, everything would be over and we'd be let in everywhere."
It's one of those things you hear and you're like, hold on, what?
For sure. So, where do we even begin with this? Was she joking? Was this a political statement? Maybe a little bit of both.
It's tough to say what she was really going for. But what we can do is unpack what it could mean, explore the implications. On the surface, some people, they might see it as, dark humor.
Okay.
Like a sarcastic comment about how it seems like only global shock gets attention these days.
Well, a look what it takes to get noticed kind of thing.
Exactly. And honestly, it's not totally off base. Look at history. Drastic actions, they tend to speak louder than words.
Sadly. Yeah.
But then she mentions London specifically.
Right.
And that adds a whole other layer to it.
Yeah, it wasn't just any city. It feels very deliberate. She's making a point about the UK's role in, the international response to what's happening in Ukraine.
Yeah, exactly. And this is where that double standard in international relations comes in.
Can you expand on that a bit?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So in this case, Velbe might be implying that the international community, they don't apply rules equally.
Right.
She could be pointing to times when other countries, they were in conflicts, had accusations of human rights violations, but didn't face these sporting sanctions.
Yeah, she's saying there's hypocrisy here, that Russia's being held to a different standard.
Exactly. Whether or not you agree with her, it shows this deep resentment, frustration, especially between Russia and the West.
And on top of all that, there's the pressure Velbe probably faces within Russia's sports system itself. She's got to be a strong advocate for her athletes, right? Anything less is basically betrayal.
Yeah, exactly. In a system like Russia's, there's this expectation to present a united front, especially when it comes to national pride, international competition. So this statement, even if it was sarcastic, could be her way of saying, hey, I'm fighting for you. I'm not afraid to be confrontational.
It's wild, right? You mentioned her history, and it's true. When you look at Velbe's past, thanks Wikipedia, she's not one to shy away from, stirring the pot a bit.
Oh, absolutely not. She's a force, that's for sure.
Olympic gold medalist, history of controversial comments. It's what more could you ask for in this story?
It's almost like something out of Shakespeare, really. But seriously, getting her background, it's key to understanding why her words carry so much weight, why the reactions are so strong.
Yeah, so tell me more about that. What kind of picture does her history paint?
Well, she was a fierce competitor on the slopes, known for her drive. Even after she retired, that competitive spirit, it never really left. It kind of spilled over into other parts of her life, like her politics.
And her political views are?
Let's just say she's a big supporter of Vladimir Putin, his policies, which adds another layer to everything we've been talking about.
How so?
This Bomb London comment, it wasn't made in isolation, right? It came at a time when Russia's relationship with the West, especially the UK, is about as tense as it can get.
Right, the war in Ukraine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sanctions, political maneuvering, blame going back and forth. It's a volatile situation.
So Velbe's statement, it's not just about sports anymore. It becomes this whole geopolitical thing.
Exactly. Even if she was joking, and a lot of people have gone back and forth on that, the fact that she said it at all, in this climate, It speaks volumes about where things stand between Russia and the West.
Like it brings up all this historical baggage, mistrust, this feeling of alienation.
Precisely. And we can't forget that when we look at the reactions to what she said, which, as we've seen, range from pure outrage to people trying to brush it off as a harmless joke.
And it's bigger than just Velbe, too, right? Like how people reacted. It also reflects how they see Russia right now.
You nailed it. It reminds us that sports and politics, they're inseparable. A stage for national pride, for competition, and unfortunately sometimes a battleground for all that tension to play out.
Yeah, totally. So we have all this tension,
Yeah.
right? And then Velbe, who's known for, speaking her mind, she drops this bomb. How did people react? What happened?
I mean, there was a lot of outrage, especially from, like, Western media and officials. They saw it as a threat, you know?
Understandably.
Yeah, a sign of aggression, disregard for international norms. But in Russia, reactions were all over the place.
Really?
Oh, yeah. You had some, like, sports journalist, Dmitry Guberniev. He was appalled. Called for her to resign. Called her comments disgusting.
Wow.
Said she was hurting Russian athletes' reputation.
So even within Russia, no one was on the same page.
Not at all. You had others like, I think, Svetlana Zarova. She's a politician, Olympic champion. She was trying to play it off as a joke. Said Westerners just don't get Russian humor.
Which, come on, with what she said.
Right. It kind of highlights the whole, like, cultural differences thing. You know, what one culture thinks is funny.
Yeah, totally different context.
Exactly. So you had these strong reactions on both sides. But anything in between.
Yeah. Were there any takes that were kind of in the middle ground?
Yeah, actually, some are more nuanced. Like Nikolai Valuev, the boxer.
Oh, yeah, right.
He's a state Duma deputy now. He kind of got where Velbe was coming from with her frustration. Even said, like, the world might be less troubled without Britain's influence, you know.
Wow.
But he also said someone else would just take their place. So these drastic measures, they wouldn't really solve anything.
So he's acknowledging that resentment, but also being pragmatic about it?
Exactly. It shows that this goes beyond just like an offhand comment. It makes people face some uncomfortable truths about, like, international relations, power, what you can even say out loud these days.
Which, when you think about it, is a good takeaway for our listeners, right? This wasn't just some sports thing. It reflects bigger issues going on in the world.
100%. Agree or disagree with Velbe, it shows how important critical thinking is, media literacy, understanding different points of view.
Totally. It reminds us to look beyond the headlines, to think about the context, have real conversations, even when it's tough.
Absolutely. In a world where information and misinformation spreads so fast, those critical thinking skills are more important than ever.
That is so true. Well, you've given us a lot to think about today. Thanks for taking this deep dive with me.
Anytime. It's been great.
And to everyone listening, we hope this is giving you a new way to think about sports, politics, international relations. It's all connected. Until next time, keep asking questions, stay curious, and let's keep the conversation going.